you doing? Okay. You doing good? Means all the things, stuff and things. You're doing good?
It's been a challenging week.
Yeah?
Webb gonna be here?
I hear you, and I'm counting down the days.
Things that she had to testify at, and she said she might be here, but probably not.
Oh, that's hard.
I hadn't heard from her. Leave me alone since I was sleeping most.
Okay.
We ready?
Are we ready?
I start the recording.
Okay. Hey. The Board of Commissioners, as the governing body of Clatsop County, all county service districts for which this body so acts, and as the Clatsop County Local Contract Review Board is now meeting in regular session, all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk of the Board, can we have the roll call?
Chair Aquila?
Here.
Vice Chair Banks?
Here.
Commissioner Toyoka?
Here?
Commissioner Webb?
Here.
And Commissioner Thompson is absent.
Okay, thank you. And we've had an opportunity to review the agenda. Do we have any questions, comments? If not, we need a motion.
I move to approve.
Second?
Moved and seconded to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. First item is a proclamation proclaiming May 29th, 2023 as Memorial Day, recognizing all those who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our nation. And Carl Wiley, Veteran Service Officer from Clatsop Community Action, you can come up and present on this.
Good evening. My name is Carl Wiley. I'm your Clatsop County Veteran Service Officer. I've been honored to serve in this position for just over 3 months now since returning home after 24 years of service in the United States Air Force. Having served as Air Force Security Forces and Religious Affairs, both stateside and overseas during a period of war, honoring those who made the ultimate sacrifice is a solemn duty that I am humbled to carry out. I'm grateful to have been given the opportunity to return to Clatsop County and support the more than 3,500 veterans who call it home, and I'm especially grateful to have been given the opportunity this evening to introduce the 2023 Memorial Day Proclamation. For over 50 years, our nation has taken time to pause and recall the sacrifice of life courageously made by more than 500,000 individuals of nearly every race, ethnicity, gender, and religion. While some were called and others volunteered, every individual who perished in defense of our great nation is deserving of our thoughts on this day set aside to honor their memory. As we listen to this proclamation and go forward into the holiday weekend, I encourage every one of us to pause and either lift up a good thought, say a prayer, or give thanks as your beliefs lead you for the individuals who have perished so that we may live our lives as we know them today.
Thank you, VSO Wiley, and thank you for your service. Thank you for the powerful message as well. Do we have a motion?
I move to support the resolution and order proclaiming May 29th, 2023 as Memorial Day.
Second, wholeheartedly.
Moved and seconded, yes,
Should have
to
let you
support
make
the
that
resolution and order.
Make it.
Yeah, I think everybody would like to make this motion. It's been moved and seconded to support the resolution and order proclaiming May 29th, 2023 as Memorial Day. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. And I'll read the proclamation. In the matter of proclaiming May 29th, 2023 to be Memorial Day. Whereas in 1868, 3 years after the end of the Civil War, Major General John A. Logan declared May 30th as Decoration Day, the precursor to Memorial Day. And whereas in 1968, Congress passed the Uniform Monday Holiday Act, which took effect in 1971 and declared the last Monday of May as Memorial Day. And whereas the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs estimates approximately 656,000 veterans have died in battle, 552,000 died in services but not in battle, and 32.5 million have died after military service. And whereas today, more than 3,500 veterans of the U.S. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, United States Space Force, and Coast Guard call Clatsop County home. And whereas it is our responsibility and obligation to remember and demonstrate our gratitude for veterans who are no longer with us, as well as their birth and chosen families, keeping their stories alive. And now therefore be it hereby resolved that the Clatsop County Board of Commissioners does hereby proclaim May 29, 2023 as Memorial Day in Clatsop County and encourages the community to honor, acknowledging their contribution and sacrifice to progress the nation's pledge to justice and liberation. Dated this 24th day of May, 2023, Board of Clatsop County Commissioners. Wiley. Next is the proclamation of Older Americans Month, and Larry Miller from the Astoria Senior Center is here. Welcome, Larry.
Thank you very much. My name is Larry Miller. I'm the director of the Astoria Senior Center and have been there for approximately 12 years and seen a lot of growth in the community as it relates to seniors of the community. We've got a great facility. Not long ago, 7 years or so ago, we received a grant for $1.5 million and remodeled the senior center. It's really a great place. We have about 501 members right now. Of course, we don't see them all, but it's continuously used Monday through Friday. We have a regular 8-hour day, then a short day on Saturdays and closed on Sundays. But I want to thank you folks for deciding to make Older Americans Month of May. It's certainly appreciated by myself and certainly by the seniors of the community. I wrote a short little paragraph I'd like to read to you if it's okay.
Absolutely.
Older American Month is a time when we recognize and appreciate the invaluable contributions of our senior citizens, the backbones of our community. It is a time to reflect on the wisdom, experience, and achievements of our older generation and express our gratitude for their enduring dedication to our community. I want to thank you very much for making this happen.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Miller. Do we have a motion?
I'm sorry. Yeah. I move to approve the resolution and order proclaiming May 2023 as Older Americans Month and authorize the chair to read, then sign the proclamation.
Moved and seconded to approve the resolution and order proclaiming May 2023 as Older Americans Month and authorize the chair to read, then sign the proclamation. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. In the matter of proclaiming the month of May to be Older Americans Month, whereas this year the Administration for Community Living designed the 2023 Older American Month theme, Aging Unbound, as an opportunity to explore diverse aging experiences and discuss how communities can combat stereotypes. And whereas organizations like the Northwest Senior and Disability Services and Astoria Senior Center recognize the need to create a community that provides the services and supports older adults need to thrive and live independently for as long as possible. And whereas we can work to build an even better community for older adults by planning programs that encourage independence, promoting community and civic engagement opportunities, increasing access to services that support aging in place, and ensuring activities are responsive to individual needs and preferences. Now, therefore, be it hereby resolved that the Clatsop County Board of Commissioners does hereby proclaim May 2023 as Older Americans Month in Clatsop County and invites all community members to join in this observance, honoring those who have come before us to build strong families and a strong community. Dated this 24th of May, 2023. Board of Clatsop County Commissioners, and signed by the board chair. Yep, thank you very much, Larry.
Thank you, and I'm sure the seniors of the community will certainly appreciate this.
Thank you. Next is business from the public. This is an opportunity for anyone to give a 2-minute presentation about any item on the agenda, except for public hearings or any topic of county concern that is not on the agenda. Clerk of the board, are there any members of the public signed up to speak remotely?
No, there are not.
Okay. On to folks that have signed up and are here in person. I have one person, Rick Bowers. I have your card if you want to come up, and you'll have 2 minutes to present. Welcome, Rick.
Thank you. Rick Bowers, 357 Commercial Street here in Astoria. Today I'd like to share some information about HUD's go-to program, Housing First. The Housing First model is frequently compared to the traditional model that is a stair-step to eventual permanent supportive housing. In the early 1990s, Dr. Sam Tambaras pioneered supporting chronically homeless people with the Housing First model. His controversial model begins with permanent supportive housing and has 3 major components. First, program philosophy emphasizing consumer choice. Second, community-based mobile support services. And 3, permanent scatter site housing. Dr. Tambaras and others showed Housing First was more effective at ending long-term homelessness than the traditional model. In a landmark study, quote, individuals assigned to the Housing First group spent approximately 80% of their time stably housed, compared with only 30% for participants assigned to Treatment First after 2 years. Many studies since then, in many settings, confirm these results. It's hard to fully grasp how radical this approach is. When I say chronically homeless, these have been the frequent flyers into emergency rooms and jails, the most challenging. Second, consumer choice means no requirement to stop drugs and alcohol, no requirement to continue taking psychiatric meds. Instead, when requested by the client, mobile support is available 24/7. A quote from a book on Housing First. Staff witnessed it happening again and again, men and women leaving the streets and entering into their own apartment in a matter of days, living there as if they had never been homeless in the first place. I know of no program in the county that is based on Housing First. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Again. Do we have anyone else?
No, we do not.
Testify. Okay. Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and move on. The consent calendar is next. We've all had an opportunity to review the consent calendar. Do we have any questions, comments? Do we have a motion?
Move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar as presented. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. We'll go to Commissioners' reports, and we'll start with Commissioner Toyoka.
Order, because I'll just kind of dovetail what Rick started talking about. We had a regional housing meeting today, and I think, you know, the point to emphasize, I'm sorry, the point to emphasize is, well, they do call it permanent supportive housing. It's the location that's permanent, not the residence. And that's a key factor that we all have to, as we're looking at this situation, as long as we have a location, services available, and then we can help people get out of that situation of homelessness. That's the key. It's not to perpetuate it, but to help them transition through. And good work from the Housing Task Force. You know, there is a direction of there's going to be a critical path of how do you get people through from homelessness to, you know, supportive housing to any kind of, you know, low-income housing. You know, provide a path that gets them out of that situation. Again, it's not permanent supportive. The residents are not permanent. It's the facilities that we're talking about. So, you know, the key there is to have other services available to help them and help them navigate through that. Like Director Baker, Classic Behavioral Health, you know, I just key on that because she's so precise on the fact that most people don't want to be homeless. They want to pay taxes. They want to, you know, progress. And if we provide that path, we'll help them get there instead of providing a location to remain homeless. And that's the key. You know, we're not going to help enable homelessness. We're going to help provide a solution and a path forward. So thank you for your participation today at the other meeting. And just one last thing about Memorial Day, that, you know, not just as a veteran, but as an American, every time we say Pledge Allegiance, we look at the flag, we salute that flag. You know,
but you remember all those who sacrificed everything that we can be here today. And, you know, and as there's protests in America and there's things about, you know, kneeling for the flag, I think that people lose sight that we have to respect and honor the fact that so many people sacrificed all so we can be here today and have the freedoms to speak out, you know, and give those things. The things that America we have here are not freely given. They're hard earned. They're earned in blood. And that's why Memorial Day is so significant to me personally, is that, you know, from family members to, you know, during my time of service, I've lost many friends. They never came home. And they had full, wholehearted belief in our country and serving each other. And so as we approach Memorial Day, I always feel like, you know, this is a memorial to not only friends and family, but to all those who make it available for me to be here today and do the things and have the opportunities I have. So thank you, and thank our veterans that have sacrificed everything, and hope we can all appreciate that fact on Memorial Day.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner Toyoka, and thank you for your service. Commissioner Webb?
Yes, I had the great honor to be able to attend the Columbia River Estuary Conference, which used to be held regularly every 2 or 3 years here, and hasn't since COVID, so this was the first time. And it was absolutely out of this world. It was a 2.5-day conference and the presentations were primarily by people who are doing research in the estuary, and many of them are the federal agencies. You could go down the list, right? The Corps of Engineers and NOAA, et cetera, and of course many from OSU. I was astounded at the amount of research being done in this area, and everything that, from things that to those of us who are not scientists, who look real trivial, like what's going on at the very bottom of what's in the sand, what's going on, who's down there, what are they doing, how long have they been there? Just amazing research all the way up to, and this is the great news about tide gates. There is now a map which has assessed tide gates in almost all of Clatsop County.
Tide gate inventory, yeah.
It's just amazing the work that's being done. I'm just astounded. Everybody, of course, has their finger on climate change and all the work that they're. It was just amazing. I've never met so many, and what I loved, I think, most about it was how many of the people were young, enthusiastic scientists. It was just marvelous. I loved it, and thank goodness our planning chair, Chris Farrar, was there, and has promised to fill me in on all the things that I missed. But it was really out of this world, and at first, I mean, next time it happens, I'm going to encourage more people to go who aren't just other scientists listening to scientists. The presentations were fantastic. It was beautifully orchestrated. They had lightning rounds. They had poster presentations. It was just marvelous. I've never learned so much in my life in such a so it was great. The tide gate issue, we know so much more about salmon recovery than I realized. And the non-listing of coho, which we know that our watersheds are really concerned about right now, as are our native tribes. So it was just wonderful. I wish that someday we could have the money in our budget to employ a full-time environmental specialist be advising us, on so much of the work that we do. It'd really be wonderful. So that was that. Do you want to hear about my weekend with my grandchildren?
No, always. Is the tide gate inventory online?
Yes, it is. It's up now, and I've got all the data.
Okay, great. That's cool.
So, and I'd be happy to share the conference. I mean, the conference agenda, folks, was, look, I mean, abstracts, just just marvelous. It was really great.
Well, we appreciate that you attended that and obviously learned so much and will share it with us, so,
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you, Commissioner Webb. Commissioner Banks?
Just wrapping up budget season, and the majority of my committees, finished Northwest Senior and Disability Services budget. We magically finished our budget early. I just want to say that was cool. CFTLC meeting or FTLAC meeting has been canceled for this next week because there are no modeling updates to provide. The request for new modeling, and new data by the Board of Forestry has just been delayed because they're working on it, I guess. So they have no new information for us, beyond what we currently have, and so they ended up canceling that meeting. Other than that, I got to go to OMSI today. That was awesome.
Nice.
You know, I love having kids. It was a little bit of a three-ring circus, and I didn't lose anyone, so I'm pretty proud of myself. Other than that, that's it for now.
Thank you, Commissioner Banks. And I just want to thank all of the members of the special districts and advisory committees and the staff and the department heads and all the members of our budget committee. I thought it was a very smooth process this year, and we concluded that last week, and we'll be bringing it back next month to approve. But I really appreciate everybody's, engagement and participation in that to make it a very robust and thorough process in going through the budget this year. And again, of course, thanks to Monica and to Dawn for all your work without a finance director to be able to compile that budget and then go through it line by line. And of course, Monica never gets stumped by any question that's asked of her. She has it right at the top of her.
Unbelievable.
It is amazing. So, yeah.
That might be why she's on vacation.
Yeah, she's definitely earned it. She can go on vacation.
Hopefully she parked in the right parking lot.
Yeah, oh, boy. Oh, we don't need to get into that. All right. All right, County Manager.
Chair Coelho, members of the board, thank you. I'm glad to be back, I have to say. I'm sorry, I'm operating on a little bit of a sleep deprivation here, but did want to mention that as a couple board members did note, is the budget, process. I just want to kind of reinforce it's an iterative one, and it's one that we continue to, I think, improve every year. And what we do know is there's some challenges ahead of us, and so I think starting the budget process earlier in the fiscal year is going to help us as we chart out strategies to move forward and to try to make decisions based on the best information available at the time. So as much as I'm gratified that we got this budget almost over, we'll be starting next year's in just a couple more months. So look forward to that. The other is just a reminder that the election staff did another yeoman's work during the election process, and that certification will be coming out on June 12th, so that will be the end of this election process. We're still processing some final ballots that are unclear, and so there's a process that we use to adjudicate those ballots. And that's all I have today, so thank you.
Thank you, County Manager, and thanks for all your work on both the budget and elections, and both ran very smoothly this year. We'll move on to the business agenda. The first item is the annual update to the Strategic Plan 2021, fiscal year 2023-24 priorities, page 50 of our agenda. And Amanda, I'll turn it over to you.
Good evening, Board of Commissioners. So since October, you've been engaged in the strategic planning process. And this is the structure through which you've been examining the county's progress in implementing current priorities, considering what needs to be prioritized for the upcoming fiscal year, and ultimately updating the 2021 strategic plan. The planning process has had numerous activities, which started in October with the strategic plan review. There were surveys, and there were 3 different strategic planning retreats, the last of which was in April. So in your packets today for your consideration is the proposed annual update as a result of this work. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Amanda. And this is Amanda Rippenchuk, Management Policy Analyst. So thank you so much. I did introduce you to begin with, so my fault. Any questions Webb?
I first of all, I think I have a statement that, first of all, it looks terrific. I think that, you know, to me, in everything that government produces, this includes budgets, it includes our strategic plan, it's very clear. I mean, it's very, very clear, and I think that it communicates wonderfully to our citizens. I would like to say, however, that the Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3, I think we all are frustrated by them because we want to do it all, but we just don't have the money to do it all in the next year. And so I hope that there's an appreciation on the part of our citizens that these are all things we want to get done, and some of them we just know we can't. We just don't have the staff to get them. My other hope is that now that not only do we have a very, very understandable strategic plan, our county manager has started a process of plans for individual departments, which I am very much in favor of. It's the kind of thing I have practiced most of my career, so I get it, and I think they're a wonderful thing. I hope that attendant to them will also be some reporting on those work plans. Especially going through in the consent calendar our annual issues with the OHA, which are, bless us for having to read through 75 pages of that. But we don't always see the result. We don't always see how many quick meetings we had. We don't always see that. So that I hope with these work plans, I guess I'm a little bit more accustomed in local government to have some kind of a dashboard. I know it's a little bit of work, but we can make it just a little bit of work if we do it right. If we, put it into Excel and just have to enter, how many QA did we do, and to me, quarterly is fine. It's fine. But it's really nice to be able to look at the work plan and then look and see how we're doing. So, but I just really commend all of you who worked on this because I think it's just marvelous. I think it's, in terms of a public document, it's a wonderful thing to be able, when people say, well, what do you do? Well, let me give you just a few pages. What it is that we're focused on. Very, very well done. And I have to add to that the work that Amanda's been doing, tracking the legislature, is, I don't know the word for it. I don't know how she does it. I mean, it's just, of course, the legislature.
Lots of sticky notes.
Well, they've been great. I really appreciate them. I really. So that's my.
Yep. Thank you, Commissioner Webb. Commissioner Banks.
Just kind of along those lines a little bit, I love seeing our progress. And so because we had contracted support in developing strategic plans throughout the last couple of years, I would love to see, I don't know, this is odd, but like a mathematical presentation or how well that this served our community as a whole and this Board of Commissions in focusing all of our efforts and our staff's efforts on, rowing our ship in one direction instead of 6 different directions. And so I'm just wondering if there's some way that we can create something for the public, for them to refer to see, is their government being effective with their time and their money? And I feel like the strategic plan really highlights the fact that we have been effective. And so how do we put that into words to share with the community in the transparency in an easy manner that says, when we started the strategic plan, this is where we were at. This is what we accomplished this year, this year, this year, this year. And so that folks can see that we are progressing. We're not just going in a circle. We're moving forward. And so I don't know, I have a vision in my head, but it's really hard for me to put into words what I'm asking. But I think
Well, we have all the right people in the room that are listening to you, so,
Appreciate it so much. I just know that I want it to be reader-friendly so that somebody can just click a link and say, hey, this is what your county accomplished this year, and not have to find it inside of, bless you, not have to find it inside of board minutes somewhere, because that can be really weighty on a working person. So, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Banks. Any other comments, questions? Commissioner Toyoka?
Just to, it's just to clarify too, it's when you do the tier system, as we do in our prioritizing, it's really, I appreciate that part of the process, and that you help us get that, because even though we are a small county, we're diverse, and, through the various districts, there are different needs and different concerns from constituents, and that helps us address, like in District 2, the emphasis of my constituents are A, B, and C, which might be different in a different district, so it helps us, provide that balance within the county, within the fund. So I appreciate that part of the system very much. That does give, each district input.
Yeah, I mean, it helps prioritize, but there's also flexibility built in, so we know that certain things might move up to, the forefront at depending on the circumstances, but. County Manager?
Chair Quillen and members of the board, I think the one thing that we've learned, and certainly I have over my career, is that things are going to be different than I thought, and there's no greater evidence than that than with the work that the county does every year, because things happen that we didn't anticipate, funding sources arrive that we didn't anticipate. Sometimes we lose funding sources that we were anticipating, and so it is very much an ongoing resetting process that I think, relevancy within government partly is that we stay on top of what the needs of the community are, and then we find the revenue sources to provide those services and to know when to pivot into another direction. And so, this is intended to be flexible, and likely, just like it happens every year, there'll be projects that we didn't talk about that will be on the list of successes at the end of the year because we adjusted. So, thank you.
Thank you, County Manager. Do we have a motion?
I got wrapped up into
The motion
looking
is
through
to
it.
adopt the.
Yeah, I move to adopt the strategic plan, recommendations for this upcoming year.
Seconded.
Okay, moved and seconded to adopt the proposed annual update to the strategic plan for 2021. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much, Amanda. Thanks for all your hard work.
Yeah, thank you, and I am so sorry, I forgot to mention, the reason why this looks so beautiful is our public affairs team, so I just want to do a shout out, to Jen Benoit. She did a lot of work on this, and it looks really great.
Yeah,
Thank
great
you very
job.
much.
Great job, Jennifer.
Our Tier 1.
All right, next is Ambulance Service Area Advisory Committee appointments. It's on page 70.
Ooh, you've had a haircut. It's lovely. It
I'm
looks
sorry,
lovely.
I'm not at the page yet.
The page, you got Tiffany on there.
Okay, well, I'll turn it right over to Tiffany. Tiffany Brown, our Emergency Manager.
Maybe it's a ponytail.
We go. Can you hear me now?
Yep, can hear you now.
Wonderful. Good evening, Commissioners. The next item on your agenda is to consider appointments to the Ambulance Service Area Advisory Committee. We have 6 appointments tonight. It seems like a lot. 2, I'll remind you, are the ex officio positions that you approved in recent months. 1 is a reappointment for Jill Tillotson, one of our nursing positions, and the 3 remaining public positions are all vacant. 1 is already vacant and 2 are upcoming. So we're being proactive about a couple of those positions. You discussed this at your April 26th work session, and I'm here to answer any questions you might have tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tiffany. Do we have any questions?
Chair Quilla, if it might be helpful if I read the motion with the names in them,
Yeah.
since there's blanks.
I actually wrote it all out.
Then never mind. Thank you, Commissioner
How
Webb.
about it?
So,
Because, okay, go for it.
Because it took me a long time to figure out who went into each place.
But I was just thinking.
That was
I
the
do have-
puzzle
I
of
do
the
have a
week,
question,
so.
though. Because we've already appointed Jill Tillotson. Is that, or is she one of the ones that we're appointing?
She's a re-up.
She's a reality.
Oh, okay, never mind, I got it.
Her thing is, her,
I got you.
She's expiring and then,
yeah.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
Okay. I move to appoint Shelley Solom, Kyle Gormer, Bonnie Thompson to citizen positions, Kathy Gantz to the ex officio registered nurse position, and Brian Asbury to the ex officio fire representative position, each with terms expiring 6/30/26, and to reappoint Jill Tillotson to the registered nurse position with a term expiring 6/30/25. These terms will begin July 1st, 2023.
second,
Okay, moved and seconded to appoint Shelley Solom, Kyle Gorman, Bonnie Thompson to citizen positions, Kathy Gantz to the ex officio registered nurse position, and Brian Alsbury to the ex officio fire representative position, each with terms expiring 6/30/26, and to reappoint Jill Tillotson to the registered nurse position with a term expiring 6/30/25. These terms will begin July 1st, 2023. All those in favor signify with an aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Tiffany. Thank you, everyone. Good to see you. Next item.
Could I add?
Yeah, go ahead,
I'm
Ms. Webb.
sorry, I didn't say this before. I think one of the things that this expanded membership is doing is turning the attention of this group to a broader county-wide, including the city's membership. It's a real nice expansion of in our efforts to coordinate what we do with the cities.
I agree completely. Thank you, Commissioner Webb.
Um,
Okay, next item is appeal of hearings officer decision, JJG ORE LLC, variance on page 82. And our senior planner, Ian Sisson, is here. So during March 22nd, 2023 board meeting, the Board of Commissioners decided to hear the appeal on the hearings officer's decision concerning JJG ORS LLC variance application number 22000318, with the scope of review restricted to the record made by the hearings officer. In accordance to section 2.2220 of the Clatsop County Land and Water Development and Use Code, this review is limited to 1, a factual report prepared by the Community Development Director, 2, all exhibits, materials, pleadings, memoranda, stipulations, and motions submitted by any party and received or considered in the reaching of the decision under review, and number 3, the transcript of the hearing. So, for this evening's review, there will be no testimony from either of the parties and no new evidence presented. So I think that's really important, that this is on the record only. Board members are to make their decision on the information provided in the record. The board may order to affirm, reverse, or modify in whole or part the prior decision made by the hearings officer that is under review. So, does any commissioner have any ex parte contact to report? So, none. And now I'll turn over to Ian Sisson, who's our senior planner, for a brief report on tonight's review. Ian.
Thank you, Chair Aquila and Commissioners. I wanted to give you a presentation on this application again and go over the criteria for a variance. That's what's in the record, and then kind of reiterate what your steps are tonight. So the subject property is at 80486 Carnahan Road in Arch Cape on the ocean front. It is in the AC RCR zone, Arch Cape Community Residential, Flood Hazard Overlay, and Geologic Hazards Overlay. The application that was received was for a variance to the north side yard setback, a reduction to the required 10-foot setback by 6 feet. So the setback would be 4 feet as requested. This is to accommodate the replacement of an existing dwelling with a new dwelling, roughly the same square footage, but all on a single story. Here is a photo from Carnahan looking toward the west. And you can see that area of side yard against the northern property line there, and the beach access path running between those two properties, which is 6 feet wide and is not an easement. It's actually a independent right of way. So the property line for the subject property ends at the edge of. So the criteria for variance are that the variance may be appropriate where by reason of exceptional configuration or by reason of other extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions existing on a piece of property, the strict application of any regulations enacted under this ordinance, in this case a setback, would result in peculiar, exceptional, and undue hardship upon the owner of such property which a variance is requested. Variances are processed under a Type 2A procedure, which involves a public hearing before a hearings officer. And then there are a set of standards for a variance. And so the intent of the ordinance is that a variance is only granted to overcome some exceptional physical condition related to a parcel of land posing practical difficulty to development and preventing the owner from using the property as intended by the zoning ordinance. Any variance granted shall be the minimum adjustment necessary for the reasonable use of the land. So the standards start with exceptional circumstances apply to the property and do not apply to other properties in the vicinity and result from lot size or shape, topography, geology, or other circumstances over which the applicant has no control. Strict application of the LAWDUT criteria would deprive the applicant of the reasonable use of the land or structure. The granting of a variance shall neither be injurious to the neighborhood or community, nor otherwise detrimental to the public welfare or to public safety. Granting of the variance will not permit the establishment of any development or use which is not permitted by the ordinance, nor confer upon the applicant any special privilege that is denied by this ordinance to other land, structures, or buildings in the area. There must be proof of significant hardship if the variance is not granted. It is not sufficient proof of hardship to show that a greater profit would result if a variance were granted, nor shall loss of value be a valid reason to grant a variance. Furthermore, the hardship cannot be self-created or self-imposed, nor can it be created by one who purchases property with or without the knowledge of restrictions present. Result from the strict application of this ordinance can be suffered directly by the property in question. Evidence of a variance granted under similar circumstances shall not be considered as a solely sufficient cause to grant hardship relief. The granting of a variance is necessary for the reasonable use of the land or building, and the variance granted by the hearing body is the minimum variance that will accomplish that purpose. Hardship does not arise from a violation of the provisions of the ordinance, and finally, the development will occur on a parcel of land that, in conjunction with adjacent land in the same ownership, is not otherwise reasonably capable of development and use under the provisions of this ordinance. Again, the variance is processed under a Type 2A procedure, and the public hearing was held back in November of last year, on November 20th. At the end of the hearing, the hearings officer closed the record and took the matter under advisement. Later on, the record was reopened by the hearings officer at the request of the applicant for additional written testimony, which is included in your packet in attachment E. On February 9th of this year, the hearings officer issued a notice of decision denying the variance request. In the notice of decision, the hearings officer found the proposal did not satisfy the standards for a variance, which I just went over. The primary reason the hearings officer found the proposal didn't meet those criteria was that the applicant didn't sufficiently demonstrate that there was no reasonable use of the property without the variance. So in other words, the hearings officer said the applicant did not suggest why or show why a house that meets the required setback would not be reasonable, and the hearings officer believed that it likely was possible, would be possible, to build a house that meets all of the setback requirements, and that would be considered reasonable use of the land, even though it's not the house the applicant desires to build, it would still be considered reasonable use according to the hearings officer's decision. So your board has decided to review this appeal on the record. Chair Quila went over the limitations on that review, and it is only the record from when the application was submitted up through the hearings officer's decision. So only those materials can be considered in your review this evening. The code section is listed there, which describes items more specifically. But anything outside that context, when the application was submitted, record of proceedings that was created up through the actual notice of decision from the hearings officer is what you're right. And essentially, we are asking for you to determine whether the hearings officer's decision should be affirmed, or if it should be reversed, or if it should be modified in whole or in part. And if you choose to modify or reverse the decision, we will need from you basically your findings and your reasons for doing that. Also, the possibility that you could remand the decision to the hearings officer, and we would need the same thing, is, reason for remand and what specifically you would want the hearings officer to look at. That's my presentation for you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Commissioner Bangs?
The square footage of the home currently and of the plan is the same square footage, is that correct? Is that what I heard from you correctly?
It's not exactly the same. So the existing, they're very close. The existing home is 1,677 square feet, and that's on 2 stories. And the proposed is 1,706 square feet. So it's a 39 square foot difference.
And the number of bedrooms are the same, 4 bedrooms for 4 bedrooms, is that correct?
The existing home, according to assessor records and according to the applicant, does have 4 bedrooms.
Okay.
And the proposed floor plan will also have 4 bedrooms.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Toyota?
Yeah, reading through this, as questions like, deny reasonable use for configuration of the home. Actually, a question, so if I'm older and it's a 2-story home, it's not navigable as I get older, I want a 1-story, and this is how you do it, is that, to me, that would be like, okay, that is appropriate configuration future, if I'm gonna use it for long term. Whereas today, 2-story might seem reasonable, but in a couple of years, 1-story, I could never use the upper stories. So in terms of configuration, is that something that we consider?
So reasonable use of the property is not something that is determined by the current owner or the owner of the property. It is agnostic of the actual occupant of the dwelling. So it would just be looking at generally what is a reasonable use of that property.
Okay. Commissioner Banks?
So is this the point that we begin discussing our motion or potential motion?
If you're done asking questions, then this is the point where we would deliberate. And again, I'll kind of reaffirm what Ian just went through. You've got the staff report from November 15th. You've got the November 22nd public hearing. November 30th, applicant's request to reopen the record. December 22nd, hearings officer order reopening and extending the record. The material received during the extended record period. And then the February 9th, hearings officer notice of decision. So that's the record. That's what we have to deliberate on. And again, just reminding us that this was a hearings officer decision to deny the appeal, correct? The variance.
Variance.
Yeah.
Correct. The
The
hearing
variance
officer
the variance
denied.
application was denied.
Correct.
So, it is up to us to determine if we want to,
Yeah.
oh, okay, go ahead.
There's another follow-on question for Ian. On their physical lot on the map, I was looking at that. Physical lot right up to the walkway, current walkway?
So from the photo, I can't tell you exactly where the property line is.
In the packet, yeah, there's the map.
Yeah, so here's the map. The north property line is right in between the green and the yellow shaded areas there. The green represents the 6-foot wide public pathway, and the yellow represents what would be their side yard with the requested variance. That area is 4 feet wide.
That's okay.
And the required setback, in the zone is 10 feet.
So that the setback is still within their property. That's what I couldn't tell from the map.
Their variance request was a 6-foot reduction to the 10-foot setback requirement.
Still within the confines of their property.
Any other questions? Okay, now we can begin our deliberations, and this is again to either affirm, reverse, or modify the hearings officer's decision in the matter of the variance application 23-000318. Okay, Commissioner Banks?
I have no problem kicking it off here. So I think my thoughts this evening circle around obviously reasonable use. And I can only reach into my own life experiences when I talk about reasonable use and number of bedrooms and family and so on and so forth. And I feel like the phrase reasonable use is a matter of opinion and a matter of experience within life. And my opinion differs from that of the hearings officer when I think about the phrase reasonable use. And I can only circle back to my life events, family farmhouse, 3 bedrooms, similar square footage of our current home, building a family, having a family participate. 1930s home, the reasonable use of a 1930s home is much different than the reasonable use, in my opinion, of a home built in the 2020s. I apologize, that sounded really funny. Mainly because when I think about that old farmhouse that I first lived in, pregnant with my first child, our master bedroom wasn't large enough for a king bed. Our closet wasn't large enough for my husband's clothes, let alone my clothes. And so when I think about reasonable use, basically almost a century has passed since that home was built to this current footprint. And I think about a family who purchased something with 4 bedrooms and obviously has needs for 4 bedrooms. And so a reduction of that bedroom size or a reduction of that footprint doesn't seem logical to me to tell a person that, I'm sorry, you're being unreasonable. And so when I circle back to this, I feel like the footprint matches the current footprint. Well, I say footprint and as in square footage. So I will say this, the square footage is very similar to the square footage that wishes to be built. I also look at the bedroom. 4 bedrooms is 4 bedrooms. The purpose is family. And so when I look into this matter further, it's just truly a matter of opinion. And my opinion is just different than that of the hearings officer. And, the phrase significant hardship without a variance. If I think of this personally, if I had to reduce my number of bedrooms in my home, I would say that that's a significant hardship for me and my family. And so when I would say that without a variance, that there would be a significant hardship to this family if either they had to reduce the number of bedrooms or anything of the like. And so I also will again say that I support our staff objectives reasoning when developing the original report. Ian, you did an amazing job. You were very objective. You took in the character of the entire neighborhood, and applied it to the recommendation. And I appreciate that. It was very thorough. So those are my thoughts.
Okay, yeah, thank you,
Sorry,
Commissioner
I
Bennett.
was really long-winded. I apologize.
No. Well, I mean, we had a really lengthy discussion about this the last time I came around, and I know that's kind of a head and a heart discussion as well about what, I have to stand by what I did at the last meeting, which was to affirm the public, hearings officer decision. I think that the criteria wasn't met to say that you're denied the reasonable use of the property. You still can build a house. It might not be the house that they want to build, but I believe that he made the proper judgment when he said that he's going to deny the variance. So I'm going to stick with the affirmation of it. Commissioner Webb.
Yeah, I thought this was a particularly, application, because it's very clear to me that we are going to have to do some very hard work on our zoning and other regulations, especially the closer we get to water. And the applicants here did that. I mean, they paid attention to sea level rise. And I think what they came up with is something that is very creative and might be something that we want to refer back to when we're taking a look at our oceanfront property. I thought the staff report for this, excellent, and really considered, I thought, all of the proper elements. So my vote would be to confirm the staff report. I always, in cases like this, I go and walk the property. And I don't see in this is one of those it's the reason we all love Clatsop County. One of those wonderful areas where the houses are different and there's just a lot of charm to me to this street and to both sides of the street. And I thought that some of the objections in terms of views I didn't understand because of the height issue here. And as I say, I think this is a proposal that we're going to want to look back to in the future and say, what ought we be doing on the beachfront as the sea level rises? So I'm very much in support of the report, and I would basically vote to reverse the ruling and use as the reason the staff report, because I think the staff report comes at everything that should be in consideration of
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Webb. Commissioner Tooka.
One more point of clarification, and Ian, because if there is somebody on staff who is knowledgeable and knows this stuff, it is Ian. The public pathway, the setback of 10 feet, you said there is a requirement that for the variance that it must not exceed, or what's the actual verbiage in this case, that if there's a variance granted between the 10 feet and anything less, the requirement, correct?
So the variance needs to be, so that it's the applicant's burden to show that the requested variance is the minimum necessary to have reasonable use of the land. And so they brought up the fact that there is a 6-foot public pathway separating the two properties. And they argued that the 4-foot setback they're proposing to the north property line and to the edge of that walkway, that's a 4-foot open area, plus the 6-foot public pathway gets them 10 feet away from the neighbor's property line, the other side of the public pathway. Their argument was that meets the intent of the 10-foot setback requirement in the code. But the hearings officers saying, the setback requirement is not to the neighbor's property line, it's to the property line of the subject property, and that the applicant didn't meet their burden to explain why they would not have reasonable use of the property, to build a house that fits prescribed by that.
The reason I asked about that is I've experienced with an ODOT issue. We had a sidewalk, and there was a 10-foot setback from that sidewalk, but we received a variance because it had zero impact on the, it was no impact to that function of the sidewalk along a highway. Is there that same circumstance here in our code that says if there's any negative impact by changing that distance, you allow us for a variance?
So one of the variance criteria is that the proposed variance is not injurious to the public. So I don't think anyone made a case that it would be dangerous to have a building that close to the sidewalk or anything like that. Staff report and the hearings officer's decision both included that there would not be any injury to the public by having the variance, but it didn't meet the other criteria, right, and so that's why it was denied.
Commissioner Banks?
So it just brought to mind another question. So when I think of variances, I can only follow on my own personal experience. Variances are for environmental or for neighboring property. And so I'm going off of that assumption or that guideline that a variance is a setback from a neighbor, not a setback from, or an environmental setback to protect a waterway. And traditionally, that's what I've assumed the reasoning is for a setback, is setback from neighboring property or setback from an environmental hazard or something that you'd be hazardous to. Yeah, so.
It's not what the variance is related to.
The setback is related to, sorry, got too many words in my head. And so, so when you're talking about a variance to a setback, I think of it being a variance to a setback from a neighboring property, or an environmental concern. So is that traditionally in Clatsop County Code how we talk about setbacks?
I'm trying to think if we have a definition of setback in the record today. The code citation certainly is there, though, for the ACRCR zone setback requirements. That's in the staff report in your packet. Mm-hmm. And pull it up. But the setback, the way it's written in the code, is required to be to the property line of the subject property, not to the neighbors. Normally, those are the same.
I just wanted to follow up on Commissioner Webb's comments regarding the thoughtful planning of this home in regards to the new building codes and the new concerns that have been brought up in recent history, I guess, versus back in the 1900s, and how creative that this was of a plan to take into account all of those hazards that are now facing our coastal homes. Anyhow.
So, any other comments, questions, or deliberations? We have a motion?
Move to reverse the hearings officer decision on grounds of our staff report and matter of opinion in regards to reasonable use and significant hardship. Acceptable, Ian?
I want to just check that with County Council and make sure that we have sufficient information to put in your order, that we've addressed that appropriately to our code. So what I'm understanding is that you want to take the findings, do you want to take all of the findings and conclusions from the staff report and entirely replace the hearings officer's decision? or are there specific items that you want to swap?
I loved your staff report. I would have to confer with my other commissioners on that. But I felt that your entire staff report was extremely well done.
And I think the request was specific findings and a statement to the reason for taking the action in the motion. So it would be specific pieces of that you're
Okay.
looking for, right? Am I right?
I think you could do, I want to let county council respond to that too, but I think you could either say you want to take the whole staff report,
Okay,
or you could pick out specific things.
okay,
Yeah, I would agree with Ian with that, so you could either be very specific, or you could just do generally the whole report.
okay.
I would say, then let me amend my motion to state on grounds of the whole staff report, and also a matter of opinion in the phrases of reasonable use and significant hardship.
Okay, moved and seconded to reverse the hearings officer decision in the matter of variance application 22-000318, on the grounds of the entire staff report and the opinion of reasonable use of, the subject property, is that,
And the phrase significant hardship.
and significant hardship. Okay, get that? Okay, all those in favor signify with an aye.
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 All those opposed? No? Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Ian. Appreciate the presentation. Appreciate
you,
the
Commissioner.
discussion, deliberations, and all of the hard work that went into this. Next item is a public hearing, scheduling a public hearing regarding the dissolution of Skip-Out Water Control District on page 91. And I think County Counsel, Anthony Pope, that will be presenting on this. With that, I'll turn it over to County Counsel.
I think, Chair Quayla, since this will be, run as a public meeting, I think we have it on the script there, so we can go through the, option for public comment and staff comment before moving forward. I don't have anything new to report on this. If the board has any questions, please let me know.
Okay. So do we have any questions? Okay, at this time, I will open the public hearing. This public hearing is regarding the dissolution of the Skipanon Water Control District. Does any member of the public wish to testify? You're
The end.
you're actually at 91,
Okay.
page 91 of the
Thank you. I
packet.
apologize.
So I don't see anyone that's to testify.
Sorry, Chair Quayla, sorry to interrupt. I just want to clarify, I put the agenda title, it's a bit confusing about, scheduling a public hearing. This is the final public hearing. So the purpose of this hearing is to have a vote to see if we're going
Okay.
to dissolve the Skipanon.
So it's not scheduling, we're
I
actually,
apologize, that's
we're
my,
right into it.
that's
So
some
we're
bad
doing
writing
the
there,
public
so
hearing.
I apologize.
Okay. All right. We don't have anyone that wants to testify, so we'll go ahead and close the public hearing at this time. Do we have any board discussion? Okay. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the dissolution of the Skipanon Water Control District. Skipanon.
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 Because you don't live in Warrenton.
I don't live in Warrenton.
Really?
I live out there, like, I am out there.
I don't know, Commissioner Quayla used to have a brand of,
Exactly.
Still does on his phone.
brand, so I will second the motion.
Okay, moved and seconded to approve the dissolution of the Skipanon Water Control District. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. And we don't have any other items on our agenda. Do we have anything for the good of the order? Commissioner Webb?
Well, could I add something to the, I think this Skipanon dissolution issue is kind of a complicated public policy. And so I'm hoping that we can do kind of a news release about it, about how it came to be and what it means. I think that one of the things I've learned in the last few months with the special district discussions that we're having is how unclear our citizens seem to be about really what a special district is.
Who's in charge?
Exactly, the transportation issue, I'm sure you all have gotten the same phone calls I have, And so I think this is an opportunity for us to kind of educate citizens about what a special district is and how it can at some point be dissolved or taken over by the county. And, then, you know, and so this was kind of a kind of a non-traditional process. So anyway, just a little public information would really be useful.
Chair Coelho, if I'm right, I think that the issues about special district is something that I think governing boards, especially county governing boards, should discuss and have some familiarity with. The statutes there's actually multiple statutes regarding special districts, so there's not just one flavor, there's multiple flavors. And each of those flavors has a little bit different statute that is guiding what the county's role is and what their independent role is. In a county service district, the county board of commissioners oftentimes is the governing body of a county service district, whereas their special district where the county board has no role unless that special district cannot function as a special district, then the role of the county would be to appoint board members for that special district so that they can actually function. Because that is under the assumption that the special district needs to function. In this case, you have a special district that purpose has kind of evolved over time and whose two assets can be distributed to other agencies. And so I think what I might suggest is at least we start this with a work session where Anthony and I can just kind of walk through what the different types of special districts are, how they're organized, and hopefully that will then lead to a little bit more clarity.
That'd be wonderful.
I think that would be a great idea for all of us. Commissioner Toyoka.
I think to Commissioner Webb's point too, maybe, you know, I don't know if it takes a PAO thing, but, you know, a lot of us are probably be hit up on the transportation special district.
Yep.
Why aren't you doing something? What's going on? And you're trying to explain to the public, okay, here's how a special district works and here's the inner workings. So maybe if we had some PAO involvement and just try to help people understand that relationship and, you know, how county's role and what we do and when we are, you know, when we step in, when we don't, might help people understand.
I see a pictograph in there somewhere, so.
I want a Venn diagram.
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right, anything else? Okay, we'll go ahead and adjourn. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming.